Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our GLSEC at Home Talk. The pandemic has not only changed how we work, but it's also made us rethink how we network and learn as well. We really hope to get everyone together in person for the next Great Lakes Software Excellence Conference that we do annually. But until then, with the support of Software GR, GLSEC will be hosting one event a month, just like this one. And this is GLSEC at Home. We could not do any of this without the support of our sponsors, because we want all of you to know about the companies that support West Michigan software development community through Software GR. Each talk will be hosted by one of our wonderful supporters. Hosting allows our sponsors to talk directly to our community, showcase their company, and share what they bring to West Michigan and even beyond. So make sure to check out our sponsors in more detail after the talk. And if you want to become a sponsor, please let us know. And Software GR definitely works because of your support, so I encourage you to do that. And just a quick introduction, I am Yulia Kiaburu from Dematic. I head up the digital solutions within the Solutions Development Group in North America. I'm also a long-term member of the West Michigan software community here in Grand Rapids and a GLSEC committee member. And I will be your host today. A few housekeeping items. If you have questions during the presentation, please post them in Q&A. That is an option that you have in Zoom, and I will moderate throughout the forum and make sure that your questions get answered in a timely manner. So with that, let me shine a spotlight on Dematic, our GLSEC sponsor and the host of this event today. Dematic is an intralogistics innovator that designs, builds, and supports intelligent automated solutions for manufacturing, warehouse, and distribution environments for customers that are powering the future of commerce. With software and engineering centers, manufacturing facilities, and even service centers located in more than 25 countries, the Dematic Global Network of 10,000 employees has helped achieve more than 6,000 worldwide customer installations for some of the world's leading brands. Our North American headquarters are right here in Grand Rapids, and we're looking to grow our team quite significantly this year and in the years to come. So if you or someone you know is interested in joining a rapidly growing company and industry, yes, even during the pandemic times, check out dematicjobs.com or feel free to reach out to me directly. And with that, I'd like to introduce Chris Steiner, our Vice President of North American Solution Development Organization at Dematic, who is going to share more on how we make remote work for us. And hopefully this presentation gives you a little insight about how Dematic helps power the future of commerce. So Chris, back to you.
Thank you, Yulia. And I get the pleasure of working with Yulia every single day. So I'm a pretty lucky person here. Again, thank you for inviting me to share our making remote work. You know, we are all in this situation where in the, you know, since I think it's March 17th, at least in our office in Grand Rapids, we made the transition overnight from, you know, mostly on-site workforce and office staff to 100% remote. And that's driven a significant change in the way that we need to do business. And that the reality is, you know, none of us were perfectly prepared for it. And today, what I want to talk about are just some of the things that are working well for us, and some of the things that aren't working so well, and how we view going into the future here, because we do that this is probably going to sustain for a little bit, and we're looking to share some of what's working for us, and answer any questions that you might have. So, some of the things that you're going to hear about today, you're going to look at and say, well, that just makes common sense. We already do that. We're hoping that you might be able to take a nugget or two away from it and say, maybe we should try this at work. It's very much a leadership focus type track. And I appreciate being asked to be the very first speaker on this particular tour. So just a bit about myself. I've been with Dematic for 20 years now. I'm the Vice President of Solution Development. What we do in solution development is we design and estimate the solutions for our customers. So Dematic, you heard the intro about Dematic. We're kind of a high-tech company. We're in the space of driving commerce. And our team gets to interact with our customers before they're actually customers. Sometimes it's current customers as well. And we get to look at what their problem statement is as a business, and put a solve to that, and then match Dematic's capabilities and partners' capabilities to that solve, and then support their life cycle throughout. So we're right on the we're part of the tip of the spear. We consider our sales team to be the tip of the spear. We're right behind them, and it's really a fun spot to be. And Yulia joined my team about 2 months ago from our software development team. I've had a really fun career at Dematic, and I know Yulia talked about how we are recruiting at Dematic because we have some significant growth. I'm going to talk about why we have some of that growth. And you can just see from my bio, I've been able to hold a lot of different positions, and even earn my degree as a non-traditional student while working for Dematic, and was supported that way. And it's really been a great place to work. So again, appreciate you having me here tonight. So ideal versus reality. So, when you think about the ideal situation for a home office, we kind of all think about, having coffee in the morning and getting to work and doing some emails and having some flexibility and having a nice quiet space to work in, not a busy office and those types of things. But the reality is there are a lot of situations in which, there's a lot of interruptions to those things. People are working from their kitchen tables, they're working from their bedrooms, they're working from the, odd spaces in their house. And they're having to deal with these different, the real realities associated with it. In fact, just before this call, I got a dose of reality. I was prepared. I was hooked up. I reset my Wi-Fi. I had done everything that you're supposed to do before you have a big presentation like this, and got a notice just 2 minutes before the presentation that Xfinity was going to do service in our area. And it was starting now. So I am working through the hotspot on my phone, and it's just the reality that we're in. It's a bit messy. So I'm going to talk a bit about our experience, what we do, and how we're getting here, right? And so we have a team of about 145. It's actually growing. I think it's closer to 160 today. But it's grown during the COVID pandemic, most significantly over the last month or so. We operate out of 8 different offices around the, I just have to minimize something here on my screen. 8 different offices around North America. We service the North American business, and over half of that, it operates out of the Grand Rapids office. mentioned earlier that our team is responsible for the design and estimation of automated material handling solutions. It's really a great spot to be in an organization like Thematic. And since the pandemic has started, our volumes of estimation activity have actually increased by over 2x. And I'll talk about why we have that increase. And at the moment, we are 100% working remote. So since March 17th, we are working remote across the entire organization. So why do we have so much demand right now? Well, you know, it was interesting when we entered this period. Just like everybody else, we didn't know, right? We didn't know what was going to happen. But consumers have gone remote too. I grabbed this chart and I've seen it in several different locations. But if you think about the penetration of e-commerce into retail sales, the last 10 years of e-commerce, you feel it as a consumer. You continue to move more and more of your purchases. But if you think about all of your purchases across all of the you know, retail shopping and grocery that you do, 16% is actually a lot. And you know, you do things inside and out. In the last 8 weeks or a little bit longer than that now, we've seen that inflection point where, you know, due to the situations associated with COVID, that consumers have significantly turned to e-commerce as their method of shopping. And over the last 8 weeks, that penetration has grown from 16% to 27%. That's huge. It's unprecedented, and it's putting a lot of strain on the supply chains of retail and grocers out there. And so what's happening is one is there's a bet that that's going to continue, and two, you know, these companies need relief from the way that they're operating today. Okay. So why I think that we might have a compelling story, and why that I think that that some of the methods that we use have some merit are, here are our performance stats over that quarter. Our production has increased by 200%. Our on-time delivery, and when I'm thinking about production, I'm thinking about the design and quote of material handling systems. The on-time delivery of our quotes has increased by 12%. Our employee satisfaction has gone up, and our success rate, and you could consider that when we win projects, has gone up by 15%. So we've had this, you know, this huge increase in demand and production, but at the same time, our performance has increased, right? And so there's going to be a lot of studies out there that go on after this that say, you know, this period, you know, had a blip in productivity and those types of things, and that might be true. But the reality is what we're experiencing is higher productivity, better quality, higher satisfaction, and higher success rate. So some of the things that are making that possible for us as an organization, we're considering these are virtual teams through each of these. But the use of a virtual collaboration platform like Zoom, an integrated workflow platform, an operational cadence that drives consistency, and then one-on-one connections as individuals and leaders in an organization. So virtual collaboration platforms, I know this seems, you know, generic and maybe elementary, but the fact is we switched as an organization to Teams last year, middle of last year. And I'll tell you that we would be struggling today if we didn't have such a comprehensive, you know, collaboration platform. There's, you know, always challenges with any tool that you have, but the ability to have video conferencing, I think, is one thing. Teleconferencing is you know, incredibly important. The group conferences. Chat history with being able to create groups, you know, there's a section in Teams now that's a bit like Slack, and I'm not trying to do a commercial for Teams by any means, but it's a bit like Slack, so you can create these channels and you can have, you know, ongoing conversation really all day long. And, you know, the timing of this technology with having to work remote, and I think maybe it's driving us to continue to work remote because we're being so effective with it. The last part is, you know, file sharing, having a platform, you know, that you're file sharing, that you're collaborating on, whether it's Google Documents, SharePoint, Teams connects with SharePoint. It's important that your organization has consistent with that, you know, that your organization can thrive with. The next is having an integrated workflow management tool. And within our team at Dematic, we use Jira quite often, especially in our software development team. But in our solution development team, it's kind of a different environment. It's a fast turn environment. Things kind of move through quickly. And we were looking for another option. And up until that time, this team of about 145 didn't have an integrated workflow tool, and all kind of workflow was managed by emails and spreadsheets and TPS reports or the equivalent of, right? And recently, and just before the pandemic hit, we selected Ripe and we rolled out Ripe to our organization. It's very much similar to Jira and Trello and Monday in being able to organize the things that you have to do, the things you're doing, the things that are done. But having a tool set like that just simply creates you know, less drag in the organization, especially when you're remote, right? When you can't pop your head over the desk and talk to your neighbor about what's the status of where they're at. If you can go into a shared workflow tool and see, okay, yeah, they're done with that task, I can start to, you know, work on this next segment. The elements on the side are elements that tend to come out of those: task management, progress measurement, transparency in the way you do those, scheduling. We use it for time recording as well, so that we can do analytics and capacity planning. The third pillar that we have that I find important and you know, kind of the software centric group, but you're very familiar with this, but it is a cadence for consistency. And one of the things that I love about you know, a lot of software teams that leverage Agile and Scrum is that you get into sprints and you get into cadence that creates a heartbeat for your organization. We have that. We don't actually run sprints, again, because of the fluid nature of what we do, but we have a very consistent operational cadence that allows us to know when we have our reporting and when we have our assignments or when new work comes in and those types of things, so that the team can prepare itself. And we found that, you know, in the virtual environment, that having that cadence is one of the key pillars that we feel that is driving success for us. And then the last pillar that we have is a conscious effort to connect one-on-one. And again, you know, thinking from a leadership perspective, and you know, from a leadership perspective, if you're a people leader, ensure that during this time you're amping up your one-on-ones. If you're you know, not a people leader and a team member, make sure that you're asking your manager to and your leader to connect with you one-on-one, because it's important. We don't have the water cooler talk anymore, and so we have to carve this time out, and it's important time. And we're very diligent in our team of ensuring that we have a very you know, regular cadence of when we connect. And then, you know, what I would suggest is, you know, ask some coaching type questions. You know, what's on your mind? Start to create a dialogue. Ask the wow question, which is, you know, and what else, right? And go a little bit deeper. Make sure that you ask, you know, how you can help. And don't turn one-on-ones into status reports. That's not what they should be. they need to be a point in time to connect to understand those 3 questions so that you as a team can continue to work, and move forward in lockstep and with trust. And trust is incredibly important during, this point in time when you can't see everybody face to face. All right. So those are the 4 pillars that we see that are elements that are really driving what we feel like are the elements that are helping us reach that potential and, that type of performance in this kind of sudden remote world. So the next are kind of the virtual, the challenges that virtual teams face. And we face them too. And I just want to share a few things about what we try to do anyways to overcome these, but it's something that you have to, keep on the top of your mind. The first is overscheduling. I don't know about you, but this is my calendar, and it's actually my calendar from this week. And it doesn't look like any different than any other week, and probably in my position, it should be a little bit cluttered. But what I've experienced over the last 5 months is that literally every 30 minutes feels scheduled. That makes it difficult to, have time to think and to create space. One of the things that we've experimented with, and you can see that we need to continue to hold ourselves accountable to it, but one of the things we've experimented with is maintaining the middle of the day as open as possible. Meaning when we schedule meetings, try to schedule them at the beginning or end of day and leave that middle space clear. And, if you're thinking about it as leaders and as managers, if you can create that space and you know that, people can get into a good rhythm of their work and get tied into it. But if they get broken up every half hour and change subjects and change, people that they're talking to, inherently, it's more difficult to get back into that rhythm and to do great work. Accountability is tough in a virtual world. There's differences across everybody in their work ethic and their skill and their experience and everything else. And being in one space tends to be an equalizer and an accountability measure, because you can see your peers. You can kind of measure yourself with your peers. And that tends to drive, good behavior, for those that might not so naturally be there. And so you run into a challenge if you might not be naturally, fully accountable or responsible, or, need a little bit of help and encouragement there from time to time. And so just some advice on that, right? Setting clear expectations. I know this is academic, right? But setting clear expectations, being transparent, having trust and communicating, I think are really in this environment the only way that you can really, kind of guarantee that you have some accountability. And, setting expectations, whether it be through assignments or, through your one-on-ones or, through output of work and measurement that way. But be transparent with what your expectations are. Expect transparency back, and you'll build some trust and continue to communicate that way. We find that onboarding, and so this is why I'm mentioning mentoring. I mentioned we started the COVID crisis with about 145 members of our team, and I think we're right around 160. And so we're onboarding, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge like you've never experienced, and so we've had to plan for it. And one of the beliefs that we have are that you can use your experience as a multiplier. And so mentoring, when you compare skill up, but maybe that skill doesn't have the experience, whether it be in an industry or you know, with an application or whatever it might be. You pair that raw skill up with, you know, some experience, and what happens is that that experienced person is able to become a multiplier, because they're able to transfer some of that experience and give the guidance to the high quality in two places. So, you know, be diligent if you're, you know, if you've onboarded either before the, you know, before COVID, or changing roles, or, you know, onboarding during COVID. Look to have, you know, a mentoring situation between, you know, your most experienced and, you know, incoming skill, and the skill that you're looking to grow into, you know, into great talent.
Chris, we have a question from Paul.
Yeah.
He wants to know, do you see working from home completely replacing the physical face-to-face engagement with the team? I think we will be in this state for some time.
You know, Paul, I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, some of the risks that I think that we face. If I go back to the performance, right? There are many out there that would say, well, look at that performance. That means that remote working works, right? And I think what it says is you can make remote working work. Sustaining that level of performance is kind of a different thing, right? I'll talk personally, and my answer is I hope not, because I get a lot of energy from being, you know, physically around my team, and others, you know, within the organization. But what I would say is it certainly is setting a precedence that you can make remote working work. And I can imagine that, you know, a new norm might be a bit of a hybrid model once we come out of this. Now, between now and then, we have no choice but to make it work, right? You know, under the, you know, we're following in Grand Rapids very closely the governor's orders, which say that if you can work remote, then you need to work remote. And that's the, you know, the stance that we're taking at Dematic, and I think a lot of companies are doing the same. And therefore, you know, we just have to make it work. I hope that answers the question. So then the last area of you know, challenges that we see is just simply clarity. And I think this gets to maybe that question a little bit, or the way that I answered it, is when we entered this, we all entered this together, and you know, when you enter something together, you're naturally going to perform better. You're at a heightened sense of really everything, right? Dedication and vision and all of those things, right? As time goes on and it becomes more normal, then it becomes more difficult to, you know, re-envision your future state. And it becomes even more difficult when you're remote, because the interactions and the way that you have interactions, and I can guarantee you, right, that people on this call right now are multitasking, right? And that's our reality. But when there's multitasking going on, right, your connections are more difficult. So your communication and the way you communicate, the frequency you communicate, it has to be more often. It has to be more, you know, more effort put into it, you know, more effort into change management and those types of things. And so, you know, it's more difficult in this environment to, you know, create, imagine your future state and keeping a destination in the view. And, you know, we've seen that we can complete our work remotely, but, you know, how do we keep ourselves moving forward and our companies moving forward? It's a challenge, and it's a bit more of a challenge in this environment, and just something that we need to be conscious of. So to wrap things up, and you know, if there's any Q&A, we'll certainly take all of the Q&A. But there's some risks that we see around, you know, how do we sustain, right? If we continue to be 100% remote, you know, there's risks to that, you know, keeping the team connected, overcoming that lack of organic engagement, the water cooler talk, the benefits that happen to that. The quality of onboarding new employees, right? It's one thing to, you know, again, keep a static, you know, current state and produce to that. But as you can see, Dematic, we don't have that choice, right? We're servicing a industry that's you know, that's growing strong, and we need to respond to that. And then, you know, change initiatives to move the organization forward always become more difficult in these types of work. So those are just risks that, you know, we as leaders, we need to put mitigation plans together. I don't have the answers, but we need to have mitigation plans together to ensure that we're, you know, keeping our teams connected and onboarding with effectiveness and moving the organization, the viability of our companies and our jobs and our, you know, our careers, and, you know, the growth and the opportunities that come out of those for, you know, employees and so on. And so, you know, I believe that those are some of our real risks. And, you know, Paul, as you mentioned, we might be in this state for some time. And if that's the case, then it's up to us leaders to start to overcome those elements. So I guess with that, I really can't wait to the day that I can work in the environment that looks like it is on your screen right now, with you know, with colleagues working close to each other, and us being back to something normal. But until then, we're going to continue to work on, you know, those elements that we see that are bringing us success, continue to mitigate those items that are risks to, you know, to continuing that success, and think about how do we take our, you know, organizations forward. So I'd love to have any questions, comments, and appreciate your time today.
Chris, there's a question from Michelle. She's wondering, what do you believe could be a barrier or a positive feature of a new employee onboarding to Dematic during the remote work environment?
Yeah, well, you know, the barrier is simply the osmosis that you get from, you know, working in a within an office environment, right? Every organization has their own language. It doesn't matter what one it is, right? So when you start an organization, you're always, while you might speak the same, you know, language as a company, or, you know, as a company, that company itself has its own dialect. It has its own acronyms, those types of things, right? Its own meaning for words and whatnot. And I've been at Dematic for 20 years, so I could probably write the dictionary on that. But it's interesting how people come in and, you know, don't know that, and so you miss some of that, you know, that learning that happens that way. And then, you know, just simply the connections. Now, we've been onboarding people, and I think one of the benefits of onboarding during you know, the COVID crisis and working remotely, and I don't know if it's more to do with the COVID crisis or working remotely, but it is, there's a willingness to help our new people onboard. So from our current employees, there seems to be a greater willingness to be that mentor, to be that teacher, to make that connection. And in this environment, it basically forces us to work that way, so that now those that are joining at the moment, I believe, are starting to feel even more supported than if they were to join in just a general busy period in the office.
Thank you, Chris. There's another question from Paul. He is wondering, so working at a small company, it was relatively straightforward to work from home. In large companies that have large IT bases, I'm sure that it presents unique problems. Did Dematic have issues? Any lessons learned getting out of the gate, if you will?
Yeah, again, I think the stars lined up when we decided to transition to Teams last year. We were kind of forced because of Skype for Business went offline and Teams came online. I think the stars were a little bit aligned from that perspective because that prepared our IT to take on that functionality. We did have a number of situations because we deal with some really big files sometimes, right? We're talking about graphics and drawings, and sometimes you can be up there at 100 meg or a gig file size, and uploading, downloading from the networks, and then having slow connections, right? So there's been some things that our IT had to do with, VPN tunneling and whatnot to make sure that certain people were a little bit less restricted in terms of, if they have a slower connection or those types of things. I think a majority of the challenges have come about from personal connections and personal IT issues in people's homes. One of the things that we learned right away, because sometimes you get into meetings that are a staff meeting that have this many people on it, and everybody has their camera on. Well, we learned right away, while it's great in your one-on-ones to have your camera on, it's great if you're the speaker to have your camera on, but it can be a bandwidth drag if everybody has their camera on. And so we've seen a lot of people start to, leave their cameras off, except for if they're speaking or if they're having a one-on-one. It's unfortunate. We'd love to be able to have that connection all the time. And I think the camera drives some more accountability as well. But there's just limitations, right? The basis of the voice coming through, I think, is the highest priority. Any more questions?
I don't see any on my end, so I think we're all set, Chris.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you reaching out and inviting me to be speaker number one. I don't know that I deserve the honor, but I'll take it. If anybody wants to reach out to me, you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can reach me at my email, careers@dematic.com. If you're interested in Dematic as a company, please feel free to connect with us there. And I'm just thrilled that my phone came through for me today and provided a network connection in a crisis. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was really a pleasure to have you as part of this talk. And before everyone drops off, I just wanted to mention that please go to the GLSEC webpage, and then if you navigate to GLSEC at Home tab, there are some more details on the upcoming talks. So please do that, and we will try to have a talk in this series once a month. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Likewise.